Gamers, it's me, Lamani. Happy Friday. It's been a little while. I've been busy this week. I've got big things I'll catch you up on next week, but expect more New World coming. So, a lot of you may not have seen this yet, but I want to give a little talk about this February 2022 update on the PTR that has just released less than 24 hours ago. Now, before we get into it, I just want to say thank you all for the support that you give me every single day. I wouldn't be at where I'm at right now if it weren't for every single one of you. So thank you for that. If you want to connect with me, leave a comment, DM me in Discord, follow us on Twitch. We stream Monday, Wednesday, Friday around 10 a.m., 10:30 a.m. Central Time. We go for 4 or 5 hours. Follow us on TikTok, Twitter, all that stuff. And if you want to support me directly, feel free to hit up my Patreon. But as always, please do that weird YouTube stuff like comment, subscribe, and ring that bell. Tell everybody no. Now, February 2022 PTR. There's some big stuff on the way. I know everybody knows that we had this whole other spiel of content stuff on the PTR. Well, not content, but like changes and bug fixes. And they just dropped the next set of patch notes. There's some big stuff here. We have some weapon changes. We have some fast traveling changes. We have some expertise stuff changes. And I'm going to go through it all and just give you my kind of thoughts on what's going on. How is this going to shift the meta? What's going to happen here? So let's dig into it, folks. First of all, endgame. Expertise system changes. What we're seeing here is nothing too special, but I will say the Umbral shard change is big. So as far as expertise, our yellow topaz no longer has a minimum drop time, so that's nice. And then just Minj operates for purple and black, just making gypsum a little bit easier to get, so no biggie there. The big one I want to highlight here, though, is increased Umbral gain from casts. This is actually huge. I will say the increased Umbral gain from crafting, not really as big. This is when you're crafting a 600 gear score item and you get the Umbral shard burst. But this one from the cast, that means day one, if you have a 600 and you open it up, you're going to be getting at least 100 Umbral shards. That's a massive amount. That's a huge increase. We're going up from 3. We're going from a 3 to 200 range to a 100 to 400 range on our Umbral shards. So should be easier to get some of those on the front end, get some really fast upgrades, and get your gear score up pretty quick to get into some mutators. So that's a nice little change there. That does only apply if you're at 600, but good stuff there. Also provided another avenue for players to increase their expertise by adding a gypsum orb that can be purchased from the faction shops once per day. Again, another really solid catch-up mechanic. I think this is a big one just because, a lot of people aren't at 600 yet. Why not give them that gypsum orb chance? I love that. I think that's a really solid addition. As far as like aptitude leveling, the one big thing I want to highlight, smelter gear. Okay, smelter gear hasn't been in the game yet, but the only way to get it is from tier 3 aptitude boxes, as far as I know, unless there's anything else. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. So if you're looking for your smelter gear, go ahead, get it that way. General fixes, just some drops, stuff like that. Next, open world. This is mainly bugs, things like that, speed bugs. And then they did some housing tax stuff. I don't really want to highlight that, but it's just they're giving companies more gold from housing taxes. They're doing some weird tax changes. It's nothing big there. Don't worry about that too much. The thing I want to talk about, though, is fast traveling. I think this is a big one. A lot of people say Azoth is a burden. So what are they doing? Fast travel from towns and shrines will now have a base cost of 20 Azoth. There are no longer cost adjustments for distance or weight. That's actually kind of insane. Recall time to inn has been reduced from 1 hour to 30 minutes. Another solid change. I think as far as fast traveling goes, I think a lot of people were having issues with like, okay, this is costing me so much Azoth. I'm constantly having to have it. And they're like, okay, we hear you. It's kind of a burden. Let's switch it up. And I think this one is really solid. So if you're in a town or you're in a shrine, you're good to go. I love that change. I think that's super interesting. If you're out in the world, yeah, I think that's fair that you have to pay a bunch. But if you're in your town, go ahead. You're good. I love that change. Let me know what you guys think about it. Expedition mutations, nothing big. Not really. We do get in Dynasty Sapphire Gypsum, but there is nothing about mutated Dynasty actually giving good drops. So hopefully we see that in the future. But here is the real meat and potatoes about what I'm looking to cover today, and that's going to be these weapon changes. So I'm going to go through each weapon, kind of give you my thoughts at the end of it and what it's going to do. Okay, so we'll start off with the Void Gauntlet. So here's what they say about the Void Gauntlet. It's It's currently a little too effective at locking down and then killing targets before they can recover from the root and petrifying scream. I would agree with that. I think a 3-second root is kind of nuts and I can't break out of it. We're increasing the cooldown to lower the frequency kill combo. Okay. And they're lowering the damage of Orb of Decay to make it less likely to kill tougher targets. As Orb of Decay already has many other functions, including healing and debuffing, we feel like it's safe to reduce its damage in this way without hurting its overall viability. I don't really know if Orb of Decay was really an issue. I don't think that's the issue with the Void Gauntlet. I think Scream is a big one, but then I think it's just the amount of crazy damage and healing you could do. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if it was necessarily Orb that was the concern for most players, but Orb did do a solid amount, especially in AoE. So let's just look into it. Petrifying Scream. Increase cooldown from 15 seconds to 25 seconds. I think that's fair. I mean, it's pretty high, but I think you have so many ways with your Void Gauntlet if you throw out a couple attacks or do anything with it to reduce cooldowns. If you crit, there's plenty you can do. Or you can get the full reset if you take the ult on the right side and you hit a giant orb pack and blow it up. And then Orb of Decay, base damage reduced from 100% to 90%. Detonating orb, detonation damage reduced from 100% to 70%. I mean, it's a 30% on the detonation, 10% on the actual hit. I don't think that's too drastic. I think people are still going to take it. I think where the real issue that people see with the Void Gauntlet is, hey, I have this Void Blade that is just absolutely going to town. Yeah, and they heal. And as long as, and it's easy to counter, but I think where the Void Blade and the Void Gauntlet really need tweaking is maybe the amount of self-sustain. I think you can argue that, but I don't really ever see an issue with Orb of Decay. I think in general, as far as like meta shifting, it's not going to change anything, but Petrifying Scream, that is a 10-second cooldown increase. I think it's not enough to make people not use it. It's just going to be a little bit more kiting around until you can get your root set up. That's about it. So I don't really think it's going to shift the Void Gauntlet meta that we see right now. And again, I didn't really ever see an issue with Orb of Decay. So I think we're going to be pretty much in the same state as we are right now with the Void Gauntlet and Ice Gauntlet combos going off. This next one is a stab in my heart. It makes me sad, but I understand at the same time. So Rapier. We're seeing a lot of players take Rapier as a secondary weapon for its defensive capabilities, healers, all healers, over its offensive ones. While we expect this behavior in a dual weapon system, we currently feel like it's a bit too effective at running away. As a result, we are increasing cooldown of skills in the Grace tree to offset longer cooldown of evade. We are swapping the upgrades Crescendo and Breathe in so that players using evade offensively have better access to cooldown reduction. Okay, so me personally as a PvP healer, I'm very sad, but it's not the end of the world. I think the cooldown increases that they did do aren't horrible. Evade, it's not that much if you really think about it. Evade isn't really the majority of your kit when you're defensive healing. It's the riposte and it's our little tornado spin. So here's what I'm going to say. Will this prevent healers from using it? I don't think so. Will it prevent DPS from using it in PvP? I don't think so. Let's be honest. A riposte, you're increasing the cooldown from 12 seconds to 18 seconds. If I take Refreshing Move on it, I have cooldown reduction built in. I hit that riposte shot that gives me the cooldown reduction, and then I do some other, stuff to decrease cooldown. I'm still going to have pretty freaking ripostes, so I'm not too concerned about that. Evade, that one is a little sad. That gave me a little haste boost. It lets you get through ice walls. But still, I don't think that Evade was the majority of the kit. It did help, but I think generally when you need the Rapier, it's not right after each other, right? I don't need Evade after Evade after Evade. It's typically I need the riposte right away. I don't think Evade was ever the issue, but I think in general it did need a little bit of a tweak to maybe make it so when you do have all of that cooldown stacking, that you couldn't just keep chaining these abilities together. So I do understand it. Is it sad? Yes. But I think as a healer in the healing meta, in PvP, even if you're a ranged player, I don't think it's going to make you be like, okay, I need a new weapon. So I think Rapier's in kind of the similar situation as the Void Gauntlet. Is it a little sad? Yes, but it just means you might have to play a little safer. It's still going to be the meta weapon. Next one, this is a big one. So with the Great Axe, they did tweak the gravity well. But what they did say was, we've heard your feedback that the changes to gravity well on the PTR went too far in terms of reducing its effectiveness. So we went back to the drawing board and are trying a different approach. This new version of gravity well includes a root that occurs after the initial pull to help hold your targets in place, and includes a stronger slow after the pull to make it harder for foes to escape the damage pulse without using a movement ability. So it's giving the gravity passive. They fixed a bug, but gravity well, this ability has been reworked. Essentially, my understanding is foes who are pulled to the center of the vortex are rooted for 1 second, and then you have a big slow, and the slow field duration is 3 seconds, and that's going to last until the explosion occurs. So here's what's going to happen. You get pulled in, you're rooted, and then I guess you're slowed. So I think it's like a 1 second root, right? And then you get pulled to the middle, and then you get a 60% slow to try and walk out. So you basically have to use some kind of movement speed. I don't know how I feel about this. We're gonna have to see on live. I mean, it kind of to me just sounds like the old gravity well a little bit, right? But the root piece scares me a little bit, and here's why. If it kind of gets into the mix of this current ice gauntlet, void gauntlet, one-shotting, ice spiking, you're gonna see all the frontline bruisers just take the great axe and try to set up the one-shot ice spikes for the team. If you line up a couple of Gravwells for your ice gauntlet boys, it's a freaking heyday, right? You just put everybody in place, and then boom, one shot, right? I mean, yes, it is a little bit harder to pull off, but you probably could, if you line up some Gravwells, at least hit one of the ice spikes, right? I think it just kind of supplements and really complements this ice gauntlet one-shot ice spike. And so I think that's my one concern with the rooting piece of Gravwell. I'll be curious to see how it works, but I don't know if a root is the answer. I don't think a root is the answer. I think a root is going to be a pseudo buff right there, right? If I root somebody in the Gravwell, that's a little rough, especially if they get pulled all the way to the center. You're just lining them up for a one-shot, right? There's going to be some kind of new one-shot meta, and that's what I think is happening with the Great Axe. So if anything, I think the change to it, I don't even think it's a nerf. I think it's kind of a buff, to be real. So, in all, with the weapon changes we're starting to see, I don't think we're going to be seeing any meta shifts. I think people are using the Void Gauntlet. If you're a Blade user, you got no worries. If you're a Scream one-shotter, go run around for 10 more seconds, I guess, or just wait 10 more seconds to set up your next kill. Yeah. If you are a healer in PvP, have fun. I'm sorry. Again, this is kind of like I know it's not a direct healer nerf, but it's one of those like, hey healers, there you go. And if you're a Great Axe user, seems like you got a little bit of a buff, in my opinion. Anyway, what I will say as a whole in the PTR coming, there's some really, really good things for New World. As far as, getting Umbral shards, getting expertise up, weapon things. There's a lot coming, a lot of good changes, and I am excited. So let me know what you're thinking about the PTR, especially this most recent update. As always, if you want to connect with me, leave a comment. I haven't been super responsive. I've been super busy, and I will tell all of you why after today, which is Friday. I've got a lot going on. If you want to DM me in Discord, I'll be more responsive to that. Follow us on Twitch, Twitter, TikTok. And if you want to support me directly, feel free to hit up the Patreon. I do early content releases. I do extra input, all kinds of stuff, and it's another line of communication with me. So, as always, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And thank you to every single one of you for being you. Be ready for some New World content next week. We are going to start hitting this hard. Have a great weekend. Peace.